The Vietnam War was a strange and tragic time for America, dividing it more than it had been since the 19th century. For those who want to know what the war was really like, these colorized photos help give a better idea than ever before. Join Factsverse as we take a look at colorized photos of the Vietnam War that are hard to stomach. Lyndon B. Johnson listens to Marine recordings. There were multiple American presidents in charge over the span of the Vietnam War, but the one who was in charge during the height of the war was arguably Lyndon Johnson. This photo shows the president listening to recordings from Marine soldiers situated on the front lines. The fact is made more poignant when you consider the president's son-in-law was one of those Marines. It's certainly never been an easy decision for any president to put a draft in place, and it was likely all the more hard for Lyndon knowing his family was out there. Sammy Davis Jr. entertains the troops. The Vietnam War was the third major war America was involved in following the creation of the film industry. It was also the first war during this period where the media seemed to be rooting against the war effort instead of for it. Everywhere you looked, it seemed the majority of stars were against America's involvement. While being in support of America during World War II was the enforced norm, the public and critics largely shunned the few stars who showed their patriotism during the war effort in Vietnam. One such star was John Wayne, whose support of the war proved the final nail in the coffin for the aging star's public respect. Though most artists weren't necessarily for the war effort in Vietnam, many would still go overseas to entertain the troops when asked. This was mainly because artists felt bad for the soldiers and wanted to provide them with some emotional support. One artist who falls firmly into this category is Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy was a vocal detractor of the war effort, but that didn't stop him from packing his bags and heading overseas as soon as he was asked. As a man of the people, Sammy felt it was his obligation to spread his love wherever he could. This photo shows Sammy in the middle of a passionate bleat. Troops arriving at Vietnam via airdrop from the shore. During the spring of 1965, there was a massive drop of nearly 4,000 Marines that occurred along the Vietnamese beaches of Cape Batangan. Many consider this moment to be when the Vietnam War kicked into full gear, and this photo shows exactly what it was like to be one of the many Marines showing up on shore ready for battle. Pictures like this were used to show Americans back home just how intense it was to be in the middle of the war effort, and they still have a pretty powerful effect on viewers today. Troops watch a Miss America show. There were lots of different forms of entertainment offered to the troops, and the most notable offerings came in the form of USO shows. The most notable were emceed by Bob Hope and featured a rotating selection of other celebrities. Several years into the war, there was a USO show featuring beautiful pageant winners that was dubbed the Miss America Show. This photo shows troops watching this show, and most of the members in the audience were likely very titillated. At this late hour in the war, many soldiers had been without female contact for years, and this was the best they got. Vietnam soldiers find a cute puppy. This photo shows a group of Vietnam soldiers that have just stumbled upon an adorable little puppy that was trapped in a manhole. The puppy brightened up the soldiers' day, and the picture stands as a nice reminder that even in the midst of an incredibly dire situation, cute puppies still exist. Ever wish you could earn points on every purchase instead of signing up for so many reward programs? Well, with Fetch, you can. Fetch is a super easy to use free app where you earn free rewards on literally anything you buy. Scan any physical receipt or e-receipt and you will earn points for every purchase. The purchase doesn't need to be on specific brands or items. Scan any purchase. Even if you have receipts that are up to 2 weeks old, you can scan them and start earning points. After you scan, you can redeem those points for hundreds of rewards, including Amazon, Visa, Starbucks, GameStop, and Walmart gift cards. Fetch is 100% free and so easy to use. Check out the link in the description, download the app now, and use the code FAXVERSE to get 5,000 points when you scan your first receipt. This is a limited time offer for FAXVERSE viewers, so be sure to check it out now. Pop-top cans were a useful innovation for soldiers. In the early 60s, pop-top cans were introduced. These types of cans would gradually go on to become the norm for soda manufacturers over the ensuing decades, replacing glass bottles. These pop-top cans made sodas easier to distribute than ever, which made them perfect for soldiers in the war. At the time, RC Cola was one of the first soda manufacturers to adopt the pop-top cans, and that means that pop-top RC Cola cans can be found strewn all over the place wherever American troops were in Vietnam. But crafty Vietnamese soldiers always found ways to turn these pop-top cans into homemade bombs they would use as weapons. There was some risque entertainment during Vietnam. The most interesting type of entertainment available to American soldiers during the war was adult entertainment. The act showcased in this picture certainly seems to know how to get the attention of the crowd, and this is just one of the many acts that was tasked with providing adult entertainment to the soldiers. There were also plenty of Vietnamese prostitutes who could be found hanging around looking for soldiers. Lola Falana entertains the troops. Though there were women who American soldiers could get their hands on for the right price during the Vietnam War, it seems most preferred to simply gawk at the beautiful celebrities on stage at USO shows. One such beautiful woman was Lola Falana, who accompanied Bob Hope during his last USO tour in 1972. Lola was one of the most popular dancers in Las Vegas at the time, and she put on a great show. The donut dollies and their ditty bags. Fans of World War II history will likely already be familiar with the concepts of Red Cross and the donut dollies. During World War II, the Red Cross handed out donuts to American soldiers. To hand these out, the Red Cross hired a team of beautiful ladies who became known as the donut dollies. This concept was carried over into the Vietnam War, but this time they didn't hand out donuts. They handed out goodie bags to American soldiers. If this photo is any indication, receiving one of these goodie bags helped keep them a little happier. The donut dollies also worked together to put on game show type shows for the troops. Centers run by the Red Cross and their donut dollies could be found at most large base camps during the war. Soldiers holding a giant python. Vietnamese soldiers were far from the only danger that American soldiers faced while sneaking through the jungles of Vietnam. This picture shows several soldiers holding an incredibly deadly snake. The snake is known as the reticulated python, and it kills its prey in a different way than most snakes. It uses its massive body and great strength to crush its prey to death before eating them. Raquel Welch at a USO show. Raquel Welch made a name for herself as one of the most notable sex symbols of the 60s and 70s thanks to her appearance in films such as 1,000,000 Years BC. Because of her status as one of the leading sex symbols of the time, it makes sense she was asked by Bob Hope to take part in his USO shows. Raquel loved entertaining the troops, and the troops loved seeing her. Surfing was popular amongst soldiers. Besides ogling female celebrities at the USO shows and drinking RC Cola out of pop-top cans, another thing American soldiers in Vietnam loved to do to pass the time was surf. The movie Apocalypse Now has popularized the notion of soldiers spending their free time surfing the shores of Vietnam, though many may not realize just how much of this was based on fact. The beaches of Vietnam were great for surfing, and it was one of the few things soldiers could do to pass the time. They were able to get surfboards sent to them from back home by claiming they were useful as floating devices. Phyllis Diller entertains the troops with comedy. Not all the women utilized during USO shows were there just to be ogled at. Phyllis Diller is another notable performer who helped Bob Hope out during his tours, and her gift to the American troops was comedy. Phyllis had the gift of being able to make almost anyone laugh, and troops loved seeing her on stage. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these photos was your favorite? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.